Hello and welcome to the 38th week of A Course in Miracles. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's been a few weeks since we have last met, and as every week, we're going to be sharing a very, very, very powerful lesson tonight. So we're on lesson 38. What does lesson 38 say? Lesson 38 is titled, There is Nothing My Holiness Cannot Do. There is nothing my holiness cannot do. And the lesson on this, y'all, is so incredible. I'm going to read what Jesus has to say about this. He says, Your holiness reverses all the laws of the world. It is beyond every restriction of time, space, distance, and limits of any kind. Your holiness is totally unlimited in its power because it establishes you as a son and daughter of God, at one with the mind of his and her creator. Through your holiness, the power of God is made manifest. Through your holiness, the power of God is made available. And there is nothing the power of God cannot do. Your holiness then can remove all pain, can end all sorrow, and can solve all problems. It can do so in connection with yourself and with anyone else. It is equal in its power to help anyone because it is equal in its power to save anyone. If you are holy, so is everything God created. You are holy because all things he created are holy. And all things he created are holy because you are. In today's exercise, we will apply the power of your holiness to all problems, difficulties, or suffering in any form that you happen to think of, in yourself or in someone else. Wow, what a powerful session. Read that in the morning to start your day. I mean, how amazing is that? There is nothing your holiness cannot do. And so, as always, that is consistent with today's session. It's crazy how and I guess it's not crazy, but it's interesting how they always align. There's nothing our holiness cannot do, including, are y'all with me? Including overcoming the illusion of death. Including overcoming the illusion of death. Yes, we are powerful beings of light, and nothing can separate us from our power. During this time, there is so much illness, and so very many of us have lost loved ones. It is important that we are able to recognize the truth of who we are. So this evening session will empower us to heal ourselves by simply delving into the truth. And it is the truth that will set us free from depression and heartbreak if we allow it. The intention of today's session is to enable us all of us, because we have all lost loved ones, right? To heal our hearts and open us up to new ways of communication with those we have seemingly lost. So I'm going to start out by saying, first of all, I want to read a quote that I love. It says, "We don't have a soul. We are a soul. We happen to have a body. We don't have a soul. We are a soul. We happen to have a body." And that was written by C.S. Lewis. So a very close friend of mine shared with me that he had a distant relationship with his father growing up. And he occasionally, expresses to me that before his father departed, he regrets not reaching out and communicating with his dad before he passed. He unnecessarily carries this burden of regret with him everywhere he goes. I say unnecessarily because in the instant he expresses to me that he wished he had reached out to his father, in that moment, his father heard his words and received his love. So every time he thinks of him, every time he speaks of him, his father is there with him. But we are in this realm of illusion. And so we do not see with spiritual eyes. We have limited vision. And isn't this the reason that death is so unbearable to us? The perceived finality of it. The thought that our loved ones are forever lost to us. The belief that we can no longer communicate with them. These beliefs can send us into such a downward spiral of despair, depression, and darkness that we will have to fight to find our way back. So I invite us all to hold on to the anchor of truth, the truth that will save our lives. So what is this truth? Let's talk about the truth. The good news is that though it can be absolutely heartbreaking to lose someone we love, we know that we are all energy. And we have learned in our science classes in grade school that energy never dies. Therefore, if we are energy and energy does not die, then our loved ones must not be dead. This is simple science. Yes, the form we experience them in has expired, right? Their body is no longer with us, but we still have access to them. They have just simply transitioned to the other side of the veil and have taken on a new form. They have changed form from matter to spirit, much like the way water changes form depending on the conditions it's in, right? So if water is room temperature, it is a liquid. If the conditions change and become below freezing, that liquid, that water changes to ice. And then if the conditions change again and the water is boiled, it changes form again and it turns to steam. Even scientists agree that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change from one form to another. So we all know that when we attend a funeral and we view the body that is lying in a casket, we all understand that that body is no longer animated by the spirit that once carried it. It is obvious that there is no longer life within that matter lying there, right? We know that the energy that once inspired that body to eat, drink, walk, communicate, and do countless things, that energy is no longer there. So, where is this energy? Where is this incredible life force that carries these heavy bodies and expresses such a wide range of emotions? Where is this incredible power that creates realities and manifests experiences? Where is this light that is made of love, from love, for love? We're going to discuss what we all innately already know, that this energy is here among us. That when we go to see our loved ones at a gravesite, that person that we're going to see, that person actually rode with us in the car and walked with us to the cemetery. We are, in fact, going to see someone who never left. It is us who are invited to expand our senses to perceive their loving presence. And how do we do that? We expand our senses, we expand our vision by first expanding our minds. So now I'm going to delve into one of my most favorite topics, which is life after life. I love this stuff. I love it. Let me do my dance. I love it. So, y'all, oftentimes our loved ones, after they have transitioned, they're still hanging around us. If we are grief stricken and depressed and in anguish, right, this impacts them. It's very difficult for them to move on. They feel our grief. So that same love that they had for us before they passed, they still have that love and they still feel that connection with us. So I'm going to read from one of my favorite books. This stuff is so cool. I'm going to read from, it's called Destiny of Souls, excuse me, by Dr. Michael Newton. He is like, he did the hypnotherapy stuff like before many people did. He is an incredibly well-known hypnotherapist, and he is talking to clients who are under hypnosis. And many times, if anybody's familiar with hypnotherapy, you're able to view previous lives, you're able to view future lives, you're able to review time in between lives. You can go anywhere you want to go. And so his clients are demonstrating ways that they try to connect with their loved ones who are grieving after they have passed. And I'm going to jump around in different scenarios to kind of just share and demonstrate the wide range of ways that family and friends try to reach us after they've passed. So I'm going to start on page 13. I'm going to start on page 13. And it's talking about a gentleman by the name of Tamano. And he is describing the moments following his sudden death after a former life. So he's describing what happened after his sudden death and how he tries to reach his wife, right? So the subject, which is the person under hypnosis, he says, "My wife is not feeling my presence. I'm just not getting through to her at all right now. And then Dr. Newton says, "What is the matter?" And he says, "Too much grief. It's so overpowering." Alice is in such a state of shock over my being killed that she is too numb to feel my energy. And the doctor says, "Has this been a recurring problem for you after your former lives, or is it just Alice?" And the subject says, "Right after death, the people who love you are either very agitated or completely numb. In either situation, their minds can shut down." He says, "My task is to attempt a balancing of mind and body." And this is his spirit. And so the doctor says, "Where is your soul at this moment?" And the subject says, "I'm on the ceiling of our bedroom." And he says, "What do you want her to do?" He said, "Stop crying and focus her thoughts. She doesn't believe I could still be alive. So all her energy patterns are in a terrible tangled mass. It's so frustrating. I'm right next to her and she doesn't know it." And the doctor says, "Are you going to give up for the moment and leave for the spirit world because her mind is closed down?" And the subject says, "That would be the easy way for me, but not for her. I care for her too much to give up now. I won't go until she at least senses that someone is in this room with her. That is my first step. Then I will be able to do more." So then the doctor says, "How long has it been since your death?" And he says, "A couple of days. The funeral is over, and that is when I settle down to try and comfort Alice." And the doctor says, "I suppose your own guide, your spirit guide, is waiting to escort you home." And the subject laughs. He says, "I have informed my guide that she would have to wait for me for a while, which is unnecessary because she knows about all this. She is the one who taught me." So then they continue, and the doctor says, "I would appreciate your taking me through the techniques that you use to connect with Alice." And then the subject says, "Well, I'll start by telling you, Alice has not lost me. I began by throwing out a shower of my energy as an umbrella from Alice's waist to her head." And the doctor says, "If I were a spirit standing next to you, what would this look like?" And the subject says, "It would look like a cloud of cotton candy." And the doctor says, "What does this do?" And the subject says, "It gives Alice a blanket of mental warmth, which is calming. I must tell you, I'm not fully proficient with this cloaking yet, but I have placed a protective cloud of energy over Alice the past 3 days since my death to make her more receptive." And then the doctor says, "Oh, I see. You've already begun your work with Alice." And he says, "Okay, what do you do now?" The subject says, "I began to filter certain aspects of myself through the cloud of energy around her until I can feel the point where there is the least amount of blockage. I find it on the left side of her head, behind her ear." And the doctor says, "Does this spot have some significance?" And the subject says, "Alice used to love to have me kiss her ears. When I see the opening on the left side of her head, I convert my energy to a solid beam and train it on that place." And the doctor says, "Does your wife feel this right now?" And the subject says, "Alice is aware of a gentle touch in the beginning but the awareness is fragmented by grief. Then I increase the power of my being, sending her thoughts of love. And the doctor says, do you see this working? And the subject says happily, yes. I detect new energy patterns that are no longer coming from Alice. There are shifts in her emotions. Her crying stops. She is looking around, sensing me. She smiles. Now I've got her. The doctor says, are you finished? And the subject says, she's going to be all right. It's time for me to go. I'll watch over her, but I know she's going to make it through this. And that's good because I'm going to be busy myself for a while. So this is so cool, right? This is so cool. We see from the language of a soul how they have tried to connect with their grieving loved one. I often say it is our vibration that disconnects us from communicating with high vibrational spirit. If our vibration is so low, it's hard for them to get to us. So we have to raise our vibration if we wish to interact and perceive them, but they are there. So now I wanted to read about how souls connect with us during the dream state. So I'm going to skip to page 22. And it says, one of the primary ways the newly departed soul uses to reach people who love them is through the dream state. The grief that has overwhelmed the conscious mind is temporarily pushed out of a frontal position in our thoughts when we are asleep. Even if we are in a fitful state of sleep, the unconscious mind is now more open for reception. Unfortunately, the person who is grieving will all too often wake up from a dream that could have contained a message and allow it to slip away from their memory without writing anything down. Either the images and symbols they saw while asleep didn't mean anything at the time, or the dream sequence was chalked off as wishful thinking, for example. The dreamer saw themselves with the deceased. So now we're going to go into how a soul uses the dream state to connect with their loved one. So the doctor intros this particular client. He says, my subject in this case has just died of pneumonia in New York City in 1935. She was a young woman in her early 30s who came to New York after growing up in a small Midwestern town. Sylvia's death was sudden, and she wanted to provide some comfort to her widowed mother. So then the doctor asked the client, do you leave immediately for the spirit world after your death? And the subject says, no, I do not. I must say goodbye to my mother. So I want to stay around Earth for a while until she gets the news of my death. And so then it continues where the doctor asks, are you communicating with your mother? And then the subject says, I begin with more conventional thought communication while she is awake, but I'm getting nowhere. She is so sad. My mother's grief at not being at my bedside is overpowering her. And so the doctor says, what methods have you tried so far? And the client says, I project my thoughts with an orange yellow light, like the flame of a candle, and place my light around her head, sending loving thoughts. I'm not effective. She doesn't realize I'm here with her. I'm going for a dream. So now this client, this spirit, decides to reach that person through their dream state. So now the doctor says, all right, Sylvia, take me through this slowly. And so the client says, I don't create dreams well yet. It is much easier for me to take one of her dreams so I can enter the dream to affect a more natural contact and then participate. I want her to know it is clearly me in the dream. So the doctor says, fine, now take me through this process with you. And the client says, the first couple of dreams are unsuitable. One is a muddle of absurdity. Another is a past life fragment, but without me in it. Finally, she has a dream where she is walking alone in the fields around my house. You should know she has no grief in this dream. I'm not dead yet. So the doctor says, what good is this dream, Sylvia, if you are not in it? And then the client laughs. He said, listen, aren't you seeing I'm going to smoothly place myself in the dream? And the doctor says, you can alter the sequence of the dream to include yourself? And the client says, sure. I enter the dream from the other end of the field by matching my energy patterns to my mother's thoughts. I project an image of myself as I was the last time she saw me. I come slowly across the field to let her get used to my presence. I wave and smile and then come to her. We hug each other, and now I send waves of rejuvenating energy into her sleeping body. And the doctor says, and what would this do for your mother? And so the client says, this picture is raised to a higher level of consciousness for my mother. I want to ensure the dream will stay with her after she wakes. The doctor says, how can you be sure she won't think this is all a projection of her desire for you and discount the dream as not being real? The subject says the influence of a vivid dream like this is very great. When my mother wakes up, her mind has a vivid impression of this landscape with me and suspects I am with her. In time, the memory is so real, she is sure of it. And the doctor says, Sylvia, does the image of the dream move from the unconscious to a conscious reality because of your energy transfer? And the client says, yes, it is a filtering process where I continue to send waves of energy into her over the next few days, and she begins to accept my passing. I want her to believe I am still part of her and always will be. I am still part of her and always will be. So this is powerful, where we see the love from our loved ones, where they are intent on connecting with us and making sure that before they move on to the spirit world, that we are in a place where we'll be okay. It is very anchoring for them. If we are in deep grief, they cannot move on. So I'm sure that many of us have had this happen to us, where we have a loved one who is no longer with us, and we randomly get a visit from them in our dreams. So y'all remember my friend who I told you about, who regretted not communicating with his father. Well, while talking about his father, he told me one day that he could no longer remember how his father's face looked anymore because it had been many years since his father had passed. So shortly after that conversation, a few days later, my friend dreamt that he was in his bathroom, looking in the mirror, shaving his mustache. His father walks into the bathroom with him and got very close to his face. And in the dream, his father told him, "You remember me now. Remember my face. Look at my face." And so after that, my friend woke up crying, but he was not sad because he knew that his dad had visited him. And it shows that it was important to his father that he remembered his face. So that was a very impactful dream for him. And we call them visitations. What is the purpose of these visitations? To simply tell us that they are fine. They are happy. They are at peace. And they simply want to make sure that we are fine, that we are okay, that we are at peace. You know, our loved ones who have passed on, they done seen Jesus, they done seen angels, they've had conversations with God. You know, they good, okay? But they want to make sure we understand that they're good, and they want to make sure we are good. And so these dreams, these visitations help raise our vibrations to go higher than the vibration of grief, fear, and regret that we may be experiencing. So another way that spirit tries to get to us is contact through children. They will use children. So I'm going to go to page 31, and I'm going to read the intro from the author. It says, when souls have difficulty reaching the mind of a troubled adult, they might resort to using children as conduits for their messages. Children are more receptive to spirits because they have not been conditioned, I love that language, to doubt or resist the supernatural. And we talk about this a lot, how children have not been as conditioned as we are, so they're more sensitive to the unseen. So he goes on and he says, frequently the young person chosen as a conduit is a family member of the departed. So this situation is helpful to the spirit who is trying to reach a surviving relative, especially in the same household. So the next case is that of a man who died of a heart attack in his backyard at age 42. So now we're going to get into the dialogue. The doctor says, "What do you do to comfort your wife at the moment?" And the subject says, "At first, I try to hug Irene with my energy, but I don't have the hang of it yet. I can relate to her sorrow, but nothing I'm doing is working. I'm worried because I don't want to leave without saying goodbye." And the doctor says, "Just relax now and move slowly forward." And then so the subject says, "I soon realized that I ought to be able to console Irene a little by reaching her through Sarah, our 10-year-old. And the doctor says, "Why do you think Sarah might be receptive to you?" And the client says, "My daughter and I have a special bond. She also has great sorrow over my passing, But much of this is mixed with fear over what happened to me so suddenly. Sarah doesn't comprehend it all yet. There are too many neighbors crowding around trying to sustain my wife. No one is paying much attention to Sarah, sitting alone in our bedroom. So the doctor says, do you look upon this as an opportunity? And the client says, yes, I do. In fact, Sarah senses I'm still alive. And so she is more open to accepting my vibrations as I move into the bedroom. The doctor says, good. So what happens next? So the client takes a deep breath and he says, I've got it. Sarah is holding a set of her mother's knitting needles. I send warmth through them into her hands, and she feels this right away. Then I use the needles as a springboard to reach her spine at the base of the neck and work around to her chin. The doctor says, what is making you happy? Because the subject starts laughing and smiling. And then the subject says, Sarah is giggling because I'm tickling her chin like I did before when she went to sleep every night. And then the doctor says, what do you do now? And then the client says, the crowd is breaking up and leaving because I've been taken out to the street and placed into an ambulance. Irene comes alone into the bedroom to get ready for a neighbor who will drive her to the hospital. She also wants to check on my daughter. Sarah looks up at my wife and says, Mommy, you don't have to leave. Daddy is here with me. I know because I can feel him tickling my chin. And then the doctor says, then what does your wife do? And the client says, Irene is tearful but not crying as hard as before because she doesn't want to scare Sarah. So she hugs our daughter. And the doctor says, Irene does not want to indulge in what she believes to be Sarah's fantasy about your being with her. And the client says, not yet, but I'm ready for Irene now. As soon as my wife holds our daughter, I jump the gap between them, sending energy flowing over both. Irene feels me too, although not as much as Sarah. They sit down on the bed and hold on to each other with their eyes closed. For a while, all three of us are alone together. And the doctor says, do you feel you have accomplished what you set out to do on this day? And the client says, yes, it is enough. It is time for me to leave, and I pull back away from them and float out of the house. Then I am high over the countryside and sucked up into the sky. Soon I move into bright light where my guide comes to meet me. So as we see, spirits employ many methods to reach us, and this is not all. Spirits learn many things on the other side. We, right, continue to take classes, and we have specific things that we use our abilities to raise the consciousness of humanity. We do all this on the other side. We continue to grow and evolve. Even there, life continues. And the love that we share with our loved ones never dies. So this book goes much deeper into different talents that we have as spirits. It talks about the colors of our auras and the meaning of each color. It is a fascinating book. It is a fascinating book. Dolores Cannon, another very well-known hypnotherapist, also has books that focus on life after life topics. So if you haven't figured it out yet, y'all, I can talk about this all day long. But I was thinking of delving in even deeper into life after life experiences and the many layers that we all are as individuations of God. We are such dynamic beings, y'all. We are such dynamic beings. So, as you listen to this video, please let me know what everyone thinks of this session in the comments, and let me know if you would like to hear other topics, because he goes so much deeper into the levels of the souls and what we're learning in class and how do we choose the bodies we want to be in, and just so many things. But ultimately, the intention of tonight is that I hope that everyone found tonight's session enlightening, comforting, and healing, to understand that we never really lose our family and friends when they leave this physical realm. They live on and continue to enjoy the spirit realm. They reunite with other loved ones who have passed. They reunite with spirit guides. Life most certainly continues. So do not worry. And I know that death is so very heavy for all of us to contend with. But just remember that if you're able to release the belief that they are gone and you go to a quiet space within, you will perceive the love and the presence of your loved ones. They are there, they are never lost to you. And please forward this video to any of other folks who you feel like would benefit from the content. I love you all, and we are all made of love, from love, for love. So I wanted to ask everyone who would like to share if there's any part of this that you can relate to. If you've had any experiences where you've had visitations from spirit, where you've had visitations from loved ones, if you have felt the presence of someone that you know is no longer here. Some people walk into a room and they smell the scent of the perfume that the person used to wear, and they're like, where did this come from? How am I smelling this? Or so many symbols, birds, butterflies, whatever that person symbolized to you. There's so many ways that that spirit uses to connect with us. So does anybody have anything to share?
I have something to share.
Hi. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Is this Madison?
Yes,
Hi, Madison. Thank you for joining.
sure. Thank you for inviting.
Yes.
Um, I was at a seance and
Hi.
I had a belief system where if I am a spirit, I will not mess with human world. So I was just very curious and I was watching. But both my mom and dad had passed. And the lady went through, a lot of people. And then one last time she says, "Oh, wait a minute, there's a lady." And then like something in my heart just like stopped. And then she says, she passed around 50s. I'm like, oh my God, my heart just dropped because that was my mom. And then she said, she died of breast cancer. So like, okay, so that's gotta be my mom. And then she gave her first initial. And my mom passed away from breast cancer when I was like 2021. And I was not a very good daughter. I was very mean to her because I was very angry with her. And before my mom passed, she came to me and she says, you know, I am going to die, and I want you to know that when I die, I want you to know that I forgive you. I don't want you to look back and have regrets and have remorse or anything like that. I want you to know that mommy forgive you. And like a few weeks later, she passed away. So I always had that, you know, that feeling, but and yet I felt comforted because my mother forgave me. So this is like 20 years later, I'm in this seance. My mom comes through, and the message was that I was carrying a burden, not because my mom didn't forgive me, but my mom came to let me know that I had to forgive myself because that I didn't do. And yeah, when I heard that, like there's something in my back of my neck felt lighter. And I realized, oh, not only you forgive others, but you have to forgive yourself too. Yeah,
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
That
sure.
was beautiful.
That was beautiful. Thank you for
It
sharing
was
that.
great,
That
great.
was powerful. Brittany has her hand raised. Brittany, what you got?
Okay, hello. When
Hi.
you were speaking of the dreams, that for me was a big one. My grandfather had passed a couple years ago, and I was living with my grandparents at the time, and my grandfather was my world, and I went into that state of just numbness. I didn't feel anything. I was just, it was darkness, and I just felt like I couldn't see for so long. And I started getting these dreams of him, and he'd be in the dream, and we'd be in the house, and things would be normal. And then all of a sudden, I guess my mind would connect to the fact that, you've passed. And I would always end up just holding him and hugging him and crying just because I was just so happy to see him again. And that was something that really helped pull me out of that dark space. So when you were talking about the dreams, I was just like, I've actually, experienced that.
Wow, that's amazing. You were having some visitations. I love it. And it made you feel better. That's exactly the intention, is to make us feel better. I love that. I love that. Takia, you got something?
Yes, I do. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hey, Miss Loretta, thank you so much for this, because death or life after life is not the easiest thing to talk about. It's not the easiest conversation to have, but this was one that's different from one I've ever had, because it was so comforting, and it kind of helps us to accept the things that we might dismiss when we're alone, or think it's because it's our fantasy or whatever. But I just wanted to share really quick. My father passed away when I was 9. Me and him had a really good relationship in my childhood, but I I had a few dreams of. I only had 3 dreams of him ever. It's been 20 years now since he's been gone, and in each of the dreams, I always saw his face. And I always tried to communicate with him, but he never said anything. Even when he tried to talk, it was just silent. And so I never knew what that meant. And like hearing from the perspective of, I guess, a soul when you were reading the book, kinds of puts things into perspective that he probably was trying so hard to like get to me, but there are things as souls that they may have to learn to connect with us. So for one, that's why the stuff that you read was very comforting, because it's like he did his best to just show up. You know what I'm saying? But after those 3 dreams I've had that were like spaced apart in years, I ended up doing some hypnotherapy, actually blessed to have done it with Miss Loretta. And she prepared me or whatever for the experience. I've never had it done before. And nothing that I was even thinking about had anything to do with my father, but that was the first thing that came to me. And it was so vivid and so clear. And the signs that were shown to me, I just knew it was him. And in that hypnotherapy, I communicated with him in a way that I've been wanting to do in those 3 dreams I've had in all of these years that have passed. And it was just, I don't know how to explain it, y'all, but I was like on a high because the experience seemed so long and just so real. But thank you, Miss Loretta, for sharing that, because it just reassures me, even though I know what I saw was real. It just continues to reassure me that his presence has never left. His spirit is always around, as well as all of our loved ones who are trying to contact us and be with us. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that was a powerful session, Takia. That was a powerful session.
It was. I can never forget it.
Yes, yes. And you're that was the intention of tonight, because we, especially during these times, we have so much going on. You know, so many people are using this time to exit. So so yes, they are never, never lost to us. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing. Margaret, did you want to share something?
Yes,
Okay.
this experience happened when my mom passed.
Okay.
My mom was sick. She was living in Trinidad, and I was living over here. And I was sleeping, and something woke me out of my dream, out of my sleep, and I just heard this voice said, "Goodbye, Margaret." 5 minutes after, we got a phone call that my mom passed. So she took the time and she came and she told me goodbye before she died, or after she died, or so I just wanted to say that our loved ones are really always with us. I just want to say also, we are scared of death because I think our focus more is on how are we going to die. That experience, you have seen some tragic deaths, and I just want everyone to know that a loved one might die from suicide, from murder, from a car accident. But just know that that human being did not experience that trauma. That soul was removed before that trauma happened.
Mm.
If you listen to people who die and come back, they will not relate to you exactly. Yes, okay, this car hit me, but I didn't feel the pain. I didn't feel the impact of it. I was pulled out. I could not remember the pain. But if you come back after that incident, if you come back to that body, then you're going to experience the pain, because now your body have to heal and whatnot. So I just want you to know is how we think of death. We are thinking, oh my God, I'm going to suffer. I'm going to feel the pain, whatnot. No, because God is not like that. He is merciful. He will not let us experience that. The soul is removed from the body before that happens.
That is so true. Margaret, thank you for that. That is so true. We do focus on that moment of death, and that is a part of the fear of death. Not only that, but what you said is we often, over and over again in our heads, think about how our loved one died. Did they suffer? Oh my gosh, were they in a lot of pain? And that is so true. That is absolutely right. A lot of times, if you're able to interact with your loved ones who have passed on, they will say, I did not feel a lot of pain. My soul jumped. A lot of times they'll say, my soul jumped out of the body before the person shot me, before I got hit, whatever. You're absolutely right. And that is, it can be a stumbling block for us. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anybody else? Charmaine, did you have anything? Jasmine?
I have something to share.
Oh, yes. I know she come back on. Hi, Khadija.
Hi. My phone died, of course. But the same way like Takia and Brittany mentioned about the dream, like when you read that part, that definitely jumped out at me because my most memorable experiences of my loved ones that have passed have been through my dreams. Which I wonder is like that because I'm at a high vibration to be reached that I'm not when I am when I'm, awakened or I don't know. I've always wondered about that because I've never had an experience when I'm awake that I can say like, my father is here or my grandmother is here. But either way, so my father, he passed. And I remember this dream more than the funeral. The funeral was a blur. I remember I think I think I collapsed walking down the aisle to see him. But either way, in the dream, I was in high school and I was in college when he passed. But in my dream, I was in high school. It was a very familiar setting, which also resonated with me when you said that. So I was in high school. I was with friends from high school that I hadn't seen in years, but we were like high school age. And we're in the library walking through the aisles of books. And I kind of peered through an aisle and I see my father and he's wearing a red polo shirt that he wore quite often. And so I saw him and I was like, what are you doing here? I thought you were dead. And his response was, he was like, I am dead, but I came to see you. And I don't remember anything after that, but I'm grateful for that now, even more so because of what you just said about like that. It takes effort, right? It takes, them knowing how to do that, them being very intentional about reaching you. So him to be something very familiar to me, be dressed in clothes that I remember, being in an environment that I remember, and then speaking to me and us having a conversation was like, I'm like, thank you for that. Like, thank you. So, yeah, so that, and I've had another dream, well, a lot of dreams about him, my grandfather, a lot of them. Yeah. And my sister asked to, I don't know if she wants to share anything, but yeah. That's why I loved all of this. Like, this is amazing. So thank you. Thank you for all of it.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Khadija. Thank you for sharing. And you right, Khadija, you have you give me quite a few visits. And it's love. It just solidifies what we say when we say that we are of love, from love, for love. We're love. And it's all love. They do all that learning. And as you said, Khadija, some spirits are like, I'm not skilled at that yet, but you know what? I can get to the daughter, or I'm not there yet, but you know what? I can go this way. How they're just creative in trying to connect with us because again, they do not want us to suffer. And thank you. That's a beautiful thing that you shared. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And
thank you.
Yes. Charmaine, did you want to have anything to share?
Oh yeah, I'm here. I was just listening to everybody's stories. They were beautiful. It was touching. After some time of going through every person who passed away, they seemed to visit, I guess, or show their energy. I've heard spirit. I've seen it. I mean, just a whole slew of stuff. But because there's too many stories to share, but I can just say that I've had quite a bit of experience of spirit world, if I had to describe it. And again, most people who pass sober, they'll show themselves in some type of way through dream or I've had some experience with spirit world. That's all I'll say. It's quite normal.
It is normal. Thank you for that, Charmaine, and love it. So thank y'all so much. Thank you, Madison. You said thank you, Brittany, Jasmine. I love y'all so much, and thank for everyone. I thank you everyone for your beautiful, beautiful stories that you shared. I appreciate you opening your heart like that. So I love you. That's it for me. Good night.